Yes, hello and welcome back to another Charting from Blank episode. You guys should know how these go by now. If you do not, then I'll quickly summarize. We start from a completely blank chart and then from the higher time frame working down to the lower time frame, looking at what tends to be a trending coin of the week. And then we do a rundown on the analysis and sort of get into a plan for the rest of the week of where we can buy or potentially look at longing, and just an overall outlook for the chart in the coming week. So today's episode is going to be on IP, a coin that has had a lot of eyes on it so far this week. Since mid-Feb, to be honest, but especially over the past week. Last week we had this really big rally and squeeze up on it. Price wicking as high as $9. And I think looking at this chart, we could potentially trade back to $9 in the near future. So one thing which is important to know in the current conditions and in the market is that with these coins, it's important not to get too attached to a chart, right? Yes, we look at coins that are strong and we focus on the coins that are strong. But secondly, you shouldn't marry a chart simply because it had a big move last week and so far this week it has been strong. Yes, we should keep our eyes on it and we should look for fresh entries on it. It's important not to force these trades on these coins, especially at the moment with current conditions. These moves can be very short-lived. The rotations between coins and baskets are constant, right? We see a fast rotation between coins and between baskets, and pretty much just because IP traded very well over the past 2 weeks, it doesn't mean that this week it has to continue to do that, and it doesn't mean it owes you anything. It's important to keep in mind that as long as the setup is providing, then you should look at an entry. Otherwise, do not force to try and chase these coins, right? We can see IP is down 14% on the day today. Obviously, it's had a good week so far, up 96% since the lows. So the 22% pullback from the highs is nothing abnormal. But we just have to consider the fact that if we're taking an entry on this, that we need to understand that there is nothing telling us that it has to go up. It could potentially be top tier, but we're going to take a look at the chart today and see where we could get an entry, right? And an entry that I don't want to force on this, but an entry in which I think in the long term that we could trade back to $9 if the setup provides. So obviously it's a newer coin. The weekly chart, it's been up only pretty much since the listing, the spot listing. So there is the perp listing, which data goes slightly further back, and we can see that, we had that move down prior to the spot listing, but since the spot listing, it's pretty much been up only. So we're going to use the spot listing because it's slightly cleaner price action. Starting with the wick, which is on the daily chart. With these newer coins, they have a high tendency to backfill. As long as once price wicks, it doesn't fall back below that point of the open of the candle that wicks, right? For example, here, it continued to hold itself pretty well, and then it eventually backfilled the wick that it made on the spot listing. And then again here from the squeeze up, it's held itself pretty well, and the wick is at $9. I do think in the near term that if there is a setup for us today that we can look at taking a long on IP back towards this $9 region to backfill the wick. So on the daily, clearly we have some SR level here, similar to we had back here, using that wick high as that body high as the support. Again here, support. We have this daily sort of imbalance formed down here. This could be a place to consider looking for a reversal if price was to go down there, although I'm not set on this since the imbalance didn't exactly make a break in structure. It just pushed up, right? If it was to break this high, then we would say that's a valid break of structure. It is a fair value gap, it is an imbalance, but it's not one that I'm 100% keen on just yet. So on the daily, clearly we have some resistance at $7 as well. We can draw that as a slight resistance. I'm pretty sure if we manage to get above $7 again, this should just trade into 9. If we look at the volume profile on it, we can basically see that there's no volume from here to $9. If IP starts to get a strong bid above $7, there's a good chance it will just leg up to $9 very quickly. So keep an eye on order flow for that. You can basically see similar thing back here. Once it flipped the $2 region, there was basically no volume towards that $3 region, and it just gaps up very quickly, and you could see a very similar play like so. So let's go into the 4-hour demand here. It's quite a nice area. We have that sort of daily support at 567, and then a 4-hour demand area just below that 5.8 region. Obviously we have that daily fair value gap below, but I'm not too set on that. We had a nice backfill of the 4-hour fair value gap, which for me, here we can see this 4-hour fair value gap. I'm happy to consider that as the imbalance filled, simply because on the 4-hour chart we actually broke structure, whereas on the daily chart we did not. So 4-hour demand here around daily SR. Obviously we can see here as well the $7 region is a level of resistance for us. Personally, I would not want to see IP break back under 568. Basically this 5.8 area, if IP breaks under here, I think it could be in for a move back down towards $5 and below. So sort of for continuation, I think this 567 area looks good to hold down here, and we could potentially look for some triggers if price was to pull back into 5.7. So now we have sort of on the higher time frame our levels of interest marked out. We're going to use the lower time frame to identify a potential entry. So also resting above this 4-hour demand is like a higher time frame volume POC. So when you have these high volume node point of controls within a demand area, this tends to be a really nice place for reversal. So we have this 4-hour demand here along with this daily SR level and a higher time frame point of control. So overall, I think this 567, 568 area looks really good for a reversal on IP. So this is going to be our first plan, is looking for some triggers into this region for a long. On a sweep into like this 4-hour demand, we can look for some reversal triggers. So whatever that might be like a divergence for you. That might be a change in structure or like a deviation, anything like that. But overall, yeah, I think this place looks like a good point for reversal for IP, and I'm going to be scouting longs into 5.8. There is the case that if IP did not sweep, then I would consider an entry back higher. What I'm going to do, I'm going to change this to a resistance here. IP swept some stacked up lows, which is always nice. If IP was to get back above this region here, I think we could look at for some continuation on it. So let's just say in the event that IP does not sweep down under 5.8. So this is option 1 for us. Option 1 is for looking for a sweep down here for a long. But as of right now, this is a no position area for me. I would want to play the 4-hour, or I would want to play the flip back above here after sweeping these lows. If it manages to deviate and get back above here, and of course flip 7, it can trade back to $9. We're going to take a look at flow and see what flow is telling us. But overall, for now, I think the 5.8 area looks like the place to look for a reversal and continuation that moves back towards $9. If this does not give, then we look for that flip of 6.6. Take a long on 6.6. Target a break above 7 into $9. We have that really low volume node area here and that wick to backfill. So taking a look at the order flow here, we can see that IP has fairly negative funding today. It went down to 0.5 funding, which is pretty insane. And I think we had some shorts building up today throughout the Asia session. Probably trying to play this breakdown, which backs up my idea that if we were to see a reclaim back above 6.4, 6.6, then we probably look to trap these shorts that have entered down into the lows here, and we could look at squeezing them towards that 7 and then $9 region. So overall, yeah, some good flow from IP, and if we continue to trap some shorts into that 5.8 region, then we could look at squeezing back up, and it would just add fuel for our next move higher. All right, to summarize the plan, pretty much look for a reversal into 5.8. I think this is a nice place for IP to see some continuation. If we can't hold there, then it's probably topped for a little bit. If we don't get fills towards here, we look for the squeeze above 6.4, apologies, and 6.6. End target for me is around $9. Looks good to me. I think there's a couple of trades that we can take and just let price action play out today. I think I overshot 10 minutes. Plan's always to keep it under 10 minutes, but this one went over a little bit. I hope you enjoyed this week's Charting from Blank episode. If you have any requests for next week or any trending coins that pop up, please let me know. Socials are linked below, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye.